the way of making pictures in 3 dimensions.
In 3 dimensions, where you don't make a point-to-point correspondence between object and image, but where the waves, what you do is you take the waves from the whole into each region.
And so you can make an apple in 3 dimensions.
Yeah, well, not only that, but each part of the image contains an image of the whole, but with less detail than the whole.
So you feel that the condition of each human individual is to be this fuzzy part of the hologram that contains the whole.
Yes, but at the same time, he is a contributor to the whole, right? You see, we have that both views must be maintained.
But is this something that's created through history, or has it been there all the time?
Well, I think it's built into the way we are, you see, but, you know, that the groups were smaller in the past, that's all. You see, originally there were small groups of 20 or to 40 hunter-gatherer, and then societies got larger. As they got larger, it became difficult to maintain a coherent whole, right? We had wars and many other conflicts, and we now have this challenge of 5 billion people. We have got to make it a coherent whole, or else we won't survive.
So it's an entirely new challenge.
Yes, I don't think it ever was before.
And your basic idea is that the architecture of human society is now such that there is an interaction between all the 5 million people at one time.
5 billion.
5 billion, sorry. But there's no actual understanding of coherence.
Actually, they are a whole, but it's incoherent, right? You see, they cannot avoid being a whole. They're exchanging. Every person is according to what the others are. You see, if 2 people are enemies, each one makes the other, right? Is that clear?
Each make the other an enemy.
Well, what he is, you see, 2 enemies are very closely related. You see, people who hate each other are extremely closely related, except that they're in an incoherent relationship, right? One that's very destructive, but people, and hate is a very close relationship, but destructive. Now it has to be turned to something else, right?
In this transition from seeing the world as parts to the world as a whole, that you think we all need to survive, there are going to be many difficulties. How do you see that transition?
Well, I don't see exactly how it's going to happen. You see, I think that we are faced with these challenges, you know, the danger of nuclear war, the danger of ecological destruction, or many other dangers, the fact that our cities are becoming difficult to live in. You see, the cars will eventually clog them up. Now, people are committed now to the view of growth, economic growth, but that is just what will destroy the planet, right? As if 5 billion people want to live at the present European, American standard of living, Japanese and so on, then they will be like a swarm of locusts descending on the planet. So somehow there has to be a change where we say the desire for material goods has to be more limited, which means people will have to find something else in life, right? If they want to survive, you see. So there won't even be material goods if we keep this up. And you see that you'll get, say, much more carbon dioxide, much more pollution, much more everything, you see. And so there is this challenge, and I see a beginning of a movement, you know, especially due to the ecological challenge. Some movement has occurred on the nuclear challenge because of Gorbachev, which is encouraging. And so there is some movement in that way. The question is, will it be fast enough, you see? If we had more time, I would be much more confident.
But it seems that in the past 5 years there's been quite a change, for instance, on nuclear armaments.
Yes. I think primarily due to coming of Gorbachev, you see, that he has changed the whole atmosphere. If he can sustain that, that would be very good. If other people from the West can finally move with him.
So where you see the initiative these days is really in the East rather than in the West?
For the moment, yes. Well, there is some initiative in the West developing on the ecological question. You see, it's just very rudimentary, but you see, that I don't think people have sunk in the magnitude of the change that's needed. You see, somebody has said that we spend $1 trillion a year throughout the world on armaments. That amount spent on the ecology would solve the problem. But if you spend a lot less than that, it probably won't. Otherwise, it will slow it down.
What's the most important thing, money or consciousness?
Consciousness. No, because whether money is spent will also depend on consciousness, you see, on whether we feel we're a part of this one world or whether we all think we're separate.
Now, Niels Bohr had this notion of an open world, and he was rather ridiculed when he published his open letter to the United Nations in 1950 about the necessity of human beings talking together over the bombs. How would you see that today?
Well, I think he saw the necessity at that time, but people weren't ready for it. Perhaps he was influenced by that feeling of coldness too, which is in his view. And I think that people are more ready to listen to that now, but the crisis is developing at a very fast rate.
So in a sense what you're saying is that Bohr was seeing something and nobody really understood him, maybe because he didn't dare to say it.
Well, I think they weren't ready to listen, you see. The people didn't want this one world. They were frightened of it. They said, we have so many enemies, we want to take care of ourselves first, and so on. You see, those attitudes still prevail, but there's a movement away, right? Enough for people to listen.
Now, if we take the tradition that you are out of natural scientists that have been involved in discussing society, that is traditionally a tradition where spirituality and worldviews and religion are seen as enemies. If you take the left-wing natural scientist tradition from before the Second World War, how come that scientists today are interested in worldviews and spirituality?
Well, some are. I don't think a great many yet. Partly because the science itself has opened up that possibility in the way that I've described, and partly because I think, just as with other people, there's a growing sense of the inadequacy of the old approach. You see, that it will not only not solve all the problems that I've said, but also it creates a kind of empty life. You see, if you could imagine that we are successful, that the economy grew and grew and grew, what would we have at the end? You see, people would be bored, you see. In the 60s, when there was prosperity, you had all these hippies who they found it had no meaning. If we had that kind of prosperity, the kind of prosperity that people hoped for, I think the whole thing would collapse faster than ever.
But how are we going to become hippies? Through prosperity or through poverty?
Well, if prosperity would make hippies, poverty might make people who are afraid to lose their jobs, you see. But I think neither of those ways is going to work. You see, that a change of consciousness is needed, and the worldview is part of that.
And what is the most important way that this change in consciousness will come about, you think?
I don't know myself. I say many factors. It's like a stream from many springs, you see. But not only worldview, but I think that one of the most important factors would be to have dialogue of many different kinds of people, like not only East and West or North and South, but say, for example, a dialogue among scientists. I think scientists find it very hard to have a true dialogue because they're so committed to their views. They should have dialogues among each other or with non-scientists, you see, or even religious.
And now in 20 minutes you're going to have a dialogue with the scientists here at the Niels Bohr Institute. It's been some decades since your ideas have been presented here, hasn't it?
Yes. Well, I came here in 1957 for 1 month in the summer, and then again in 58. Now, at that time I was just moving from Israel to England, and we spent a month here at the Institute. And we talked about physics mostly at that time. Right?
Do you find that the kind of ideas that you present are easily understood in an environment like the Bohr Institute?
Well, I haven't tried the Bohr Institute yet. I just came, but I think that scientists find it harder in some ways than many other people, you see, and some other people, because there's still a strong commitment, even perhaps partly unconscious, to the old atomistic worldview.
So what you're saying is that science has shown us something that scientists do not want to see.
Well, they have become so used to the way of seeing it that they don't want to change it. You see, they feel uncomfortable about changing it, and they feel there's no reason to change it. Many of them, they say, well, we're doing so well now, why should we change it? In one sense, it looks as if we're doing very well, you see, but if you look at the broader view, it looks very dangerous.
Thank you.